I think I counted 8 groups, so we should be able to do this in 20 minutes. Who would like to go first?
Oh, we'll go, Gladys.
There you go.
Get it over with.
Woo! Thank you, Don. Okay, go
We'll
ahead.
set the bar so everybody else can surpass us.
Okay.
In terms of how to effectively launch a regional consortium, the first thing that was discussed was outreach, and the question immediately becomes to whom and who can help you reach your goals. And that needs to be strategic partners and a core group of people with a common problem to solve. In some cases, it's connectivity. In some cases, it's bringing additional resources to bear on the problem. You need leadership within that group. You need to show progress, early progress, and benefits. Bring in outside experts, perhaps, to present ideas, and then hold their feet to the fire if they want to follow through and continue with those efforts. A summit with outside leaders to get buy-in to deliver a vision that's of reasonable expectations and costs. Early wins to promote activity and grow bigger. The examples given were the East Bay Get Connected adoption program. Other examples are piggybacking off of other industry initiatives, and there was an interesting example of a company wanting to connect 2 separate facilities that worked out an agreement with the city to be able to use conduit and build a fiber ring around for the benefit of everybody. Also, there was an opportunity to find a particular industry cluster that might need a huge pipe, and bring that provider and show that provider to bring that organization to a provider in order to bring a larger pipe into a particular community. Governance was important, developing strategies that appeal to everybody's self-interest. How do you engage and find those who have that self-interest? And then finally, collecting data and information on resources, and this is sort of, I call it asset mapping, and others would creating a database of what resources there are. And admittedly, there's information that's out there that's public, and some people will want to keep it private, but there are other ways to ferret that information out by perhaps not just asking directly for it, but asking, and the example that was given was finding where there was a wireless network and looking at permits for where permitting had allowed a new antenna to be put on board, a tower. Needing to educate people, corporations, and agencies, highlighting the benefits of that partnership and participation. Linking digital inclusion to government agencies and private entities. And then finally, using business and civic organizations as key partners or leaders in the consortium. For example, chambers of commerce and economic development organizations.
Thank you, Don. Raquel? Oh, okay. Or
is that possible?
Is it?
What was that?
You want sharing? Can you please send us the notes?
Do you have an email? I'll send it to you right now.
Yeah.
Yes, or send it to me. You have my email, so yeah, if you send me the notes, that would be great. That would help. Okay, good idea. Anyone? Go ahead. So, yes.
Now that we have the infrastructure to do it, we can email it. One of the ways we said about effective ways to launch a regional consortium, we just said building what is already there and look forward to expand. Take what's there and keep going. Why reinvent the wheel? Under governance, we said we'd like to keep it at a nonprofit style infrastructure. We want to look at sustainability from outside resources, brought in by the resources around the table. We want to have strong believers in the mission and projects of the consortium. We don't want any naysayers sitting at our table. Broad and equal representation of the stakeholders from those being sought after to benefit from the project. And it's something that we all said in our group that the board, if you want to call it that the governance body should look like the community and the people that we're servicing, so that there's some connection and also there's some buy-in, because if I see somebody that looks like me, and let's see, search avenues for resources both in cash, services, products, projects, and people to sustain the project when the original members begin to step back. For outreach, we said, of course, the usual town hall meetings, neighborhood associations and councils, press releases, believe it or not, person to person. civic organizations. We also said meetings with elected officials to support project and consortia to attract resources and funding resources.
Perfect, perfect. If you could email, email if you can, the notes to me, that will help. He said no. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, with our group, we focused, instead of the traditional getting the go-getters together, the idea was to reach out to the underserved areas and reach out to the hard-to-reach core constituency. And what you'll find is you'll have an evolution of core groups that will emerge, and that's going to be the backbone of your organization. You want to have targeted messages for targeted groups. The hard-to-reach populations may be in places like the library, and you'll want to form collaboration partnerships with some of these anchor institutions who will help reach out to some of these hard-to-serve populations. Grass tops organizing was key for Humboldt. For the Redwood Coast, they reached out to these groups that would represent these underserved areas, and what you want to do is establish FaceTime and reach out in non-traditional ways to reach the population. Having supportive organizations for your group is vital. It'll help reinforce and support the message and enhance the message. And you want to have forums on new technology and possibly bring in companies and experts in the field who will not only bring the group up to speed on what's in store for the future, but also get people excited and also bring in buy-in, which is also essential. Governance is crucial. It's important to try to bring in broadband and new media into the general plan process, make sure it's included, and make sure that you get as much buy-in from the planners and policymakers as possible and help them understand that this needs to be inserted into the plans. And also ensure equal participation from diverse areas in a county or a region. It's easy to be provincial when in reality there's some common ground that with consensus building would be in everybody's best interest. Having backup and redundancy is key. That helps to focus on people's strengths and weaknesses. And don't get hung up on the rules or the roles, get hung up on the responsibilities so people can get to work. Bring in experts, especially grant writers and grant fundraisers. Open communication and open architecture is important. And if you come late to the table, you can't expect to have the group go backwards. So it's key to have a process that is forward-thinking. And as far as governance, having anchor institutions help. Activities that could take place in the future include anchor institutions hosting a public information meeting on your behalf, such as a university. Monterey did that, and it was very effective. Form technology groups, policy groups, and broadband groups, and have presentations in the future with boards of supervisors, CIOs and CAOs, city managers, chiefs of staff, chambers of commerce, economic development agencies, and also hold candidates forums and pass resolutions.
Great, great. Thank you, thank you. Next, go ahead.
Ready.
This
Doesn't really work.
I need another mic.
All righty.
Come up here if you'd like.
Not a problem.
Just email them to you like Dawn.
Basically, we decided that it was important to engage as many groups across a number of counties to become part of the consortium. We were talking about a regional consortium planning.
Hey, Mike, we need you to speak up or hold the mic closer, please.
Or
Okay.
you can come, Mike, you can come up here if you'd like.
There we go. All right. We were basically talking about how to establish a regional consortium and engage as many groups across counties to become part of the consortium. So basically, you have to develop planning groups within each county. And I think each county knows best how to develop their key core groups, the movers and shakers in each of the communities and so forth, get them motivated, get them discussing the project and so forth. The regional consortium has to be based on consensus, and they're going to provide general guidelines so that each county can follow the guidelines so that we're not going off in 5 or 10 different directions. And most importantly, we need to have the capability to push information. It's important that as information is gained, we can push it out to the interested parties. Denise?
Okay. On the outreach side, what outreach to local public officials and other stakeholders? First of all, develop effective communications for the stakeholders, being mindful of their schedule and time. Find a champion within the organizations. Attend the Board of Supervisors meeting in particular and update the board. That will also help update the public on what's underway. And offer to help the public officials with stakeholder communications and constituent communications in venues like town halls. That's it for us.
That's it? Okay, thank you, thank you. That corner over there, or?
Oh, I got it.
Who wants to go next? Okay, Tara.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So for effective ways to launch, we spoke about starting with your trusted partners and then expanding into their networks, but really making sure our own house is in order so your stakeholders have your back when you do outreach, and so there's no, anyway, so you're all consistent. But also coming up with an effective marketing plan, so needing to know and also knowing what the needs are in the community and knowing their relevance. So an effective marketing plan of how do you stay in regular contact so everyone continues to feel connected as part of the movement. For governance and organizational practices, we spoke about transparency because that helps build trust, and communicating effectively and regularly of what is going on, where things are at, what's going on, regular check-in meetings. And then also we were speaking of, with this larger group, we were more efficient by breaking into smaller groups. So we were saying for organizational-wise, it's probably easier to have smaller working groups that then all convene in one larger meeting regularly to check in and then look for crossover areas and linkages. With regards to outreach to local public officials, we thankfully had one in our group, so we had some information on that end. But just talking about being in the habit of going to board meetings, city councils, not only getting a resolution at the beginning to support your efforts, but then also giving them updates on major milestones. And because you can copy them on newsletters, but who knows the odds of them actually reading it. But it's also a good idea to invite your public officials to attend events because they like to do that, and that's another way to keep them connected and engaged. Connecting with their staff, and then also another strategy is connecting with their constituents and getting their constituents to encourage that public official to engage. But we also spoke a lot about kind of twofold, also focusing with the leaders in the targeted communities that we're going after, and also other trusted sources such as CBOs. And then also we spoke about highlighting, we all come to these sessions and we learn best practices from each other, but helping infiltrate that information to our own constituency. So if my newsletter highlights a best practice that's going on, say, in Arlene's district over there, then it's not just me having that information, that's my whole group that has the information, and then someone in our membership might say, oh, hey, that's a great idea. This is what we should do in our region, and playing off of that. So coming up with mechanisms to share all the best practices that are going on through these leaders, throughout the rest of the groups.
Thanks, Tara. Who'd like to go next? Okay.
Just because does that lift out? Or does it?
It does.
It lifts out. It doesn't, may or may not go forward.
I'm sorry. Technical assistance.
There you go. Don't break stuff.
Testing.
Thank you.
Whoa. Whoa. It's hard to go after Joe. I'll lean in with Joe.
Is that working?
It's working.
All right. What we talked about was, make this closer. Oh, yeah, I can hear it now. The effective way to launch a regional consortium, what we've done is we've included a cross-section. This is for the Inland Empire region, and we met with San Diego, who has a very similar some similarities in the Southern California region. And what we talked about is having the right stakeholders from the beginning in the consortium. And that goes along with having positive people who want to get something done. So we have we think we have a very good start in that we have included a lot of cities in the rural and the urban areas as well as the suburbs. So we've got urban, suburbs, and rural people coming together for the first time on broadband to sit down together and talk about, is it worth it to extend a line somewhere, or is there another technology that is the right technology? Similar, we also have a partner with the Eastern Sierra Group that shares a portion of San Bernardino in an area that they, in the north end of San Bernardino County, that they often shepherd projects through. So what we talked about is having a lot of government already on our consortium. So our consortium is heavy with government agencies that are already on board and already have signed up to be on. Then we added in, we do not have a large Silicon Valley type of tech companies in our counties. However, we have companies like ESRI, the leader in GIS. And so we have Laura Dangerman on our consortium from ESRI, who's the vice president of the corporation that is a worldwide technology company. So we have Smart Riverside on our board, which is a similar program to the Get Connected template. We have the San Diego Futures we talked to, that they're doing the same thing, having a program that actually delivers computers and low-cost service to the disadvantaged in the community. So we felt that the answer, how do you launch a successful regional consortium, is it cannot just be nonprofits. It has to include government representatives right on the top. It has to have tech companies right on the top, and the importance of the nonprofits who actually know how to work around, develop the relationships, and get additional funding and additional buy-in outside of the traditional government venues. But by having the well-rounded start, we also felt there was an importance to reach out, and San Diego has done an amazing job of reaching out to the telecoms, the cable companies. They did note that they had had more success with the cable companies because the telecoms have a lot more rules that they follow through the PUC. They have a different business plan. So that's an interesting tip in that the cable companies were a little more open to sitting down at the table right away. We on our consortium in Inland Empire have Greenfield Communications. And Greenfield Communications, they specialize in new housing projects, delivering internet, so when you walk in your house, the internet's on when you buy a house. You don't sign up. It's part of your homeowners association. So we have that in the Inland Empire. There's 2 or 3 developments that exist in the Inland Empire that I'm not sure if other people around the state know that's available when you do a new housing project. You could literally not have to sign up for it. It's already there.
You'll hear a little bit from nonprofit housing later, so.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just, so to answer the first question is, start with a really good group of people. And in the government area, I'd like to emphasize, the next question is, what are the governance and organizational practices? The biggest deal that you will, and I think it's been told several times here, is the IT people and the public works people are 2 different groups. I'm not sure if this room knows, but whenever a new development goes through any city process, fire, police, building department, different services within the city sit down for a design review. And in that design review process, the police will tell you if they don't think a project will be easily managed from crime. They will tell you to change landscaping. They will tell you to change driveways. They will tell you to change the face of a building, how it's facing. Fire will do the same thing, and then there are a variety of other people who come to the table. IT is not at that table. IT has never been at the table in any city that I've ever been involved with. In Inglewood? So is this new? See, that's a very important best practices to know from this consortium, because if IT, now I would say the city of Loma Linda has IT, and there's another one? Oh,
I'll just, if I can, I'll show you. Norma Santiago did something wonderful to the CETF resolution in our county. She added 2 paragraphs to it. One, she appointed the IT person in charge of bringing broadband, the point person for the issue of bringing broadband to the county. And secondly, the paragraph says every department head will cooperate.
No, that's very important, because it isn't that someone in the planning department doesn't want the IT representative there. I know that is not a true statement. It is that broadband and internet connectivity has not been part of the discussion in the planning process to the level that it could be. So where we want to head is we want to be able to include the public works team when we have a city representative, and also new housing. And new housing is not just the Greenfield example that I gave you, but also in any low-income projects that your housing authority is working on or that your redevelopment agency is working on. Any of those projects should include some sort of Wi-Fi or some sort of internet thing. So that's what we're talking about, is what type of governance and organization. We're talking about drilling down with our existing members to the people in their organizations that can become a model for others. And then what kind of outreach to local public officials and other stakeholders. We're going to have our plate full with our 34 members. And so, you know, we are going to be doing outreach through our membership that already exists. And I would like to say we're probably not going to be doing booths, which there'll be a time for that in the future. What I see us doing is taking programs like Smart Riverside and showing places like Victorville, Indio, places in San Bernardino that they can actually have a program like San Diego has, like Riverside has, and then also working on that infrastructure side, because the infrastructure side may not be the same as extending a line. It may end up being in an urban and suburban area, getting it in the existing projects so that it's not always too late or an afterthought. So that's what we came up with.
Okay. Thank you, Martha. The corner there, or is there another group that needs to report out? Or did we get everybody? Okay, looks like we got everyone. Thank you all, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next up, I also wanted to point out that Angel Assam has joined us from the CPUC so that she can, she can hear everything that's going on and get to know you further. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you, Angel. Next we have Eric Brown, the president and CEO of the California Telehealth Network. Eric's going to give us an update where CTN is currently and all the good work that they've got on their plate. And we know that it's a lot. So thank you, Eric. And welcome.
All right. Okay. That's as far as it goes? All right, I'm tethered to the podium. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to introduce a couple of my fellow California Telehealth Network staff folks who are here with me today. First would be Denise Yurka. Denise, stand up. Denise is our operations manager, and Denise and I have been with the California Telehealth Network for about 1.5 years, and she is an integral part of our team. The reason I want you all to see her is if you are a healthcare site or you know of any healthcare sites that you think might be interested in the program, this is the person that can get them qualified and eligible. She deals with the FCC on a daily basis. Sometimes I have to scrape her off the ceiling, but she does a very effective job. And Denise has materials here that I'll talk about in a second, because in each of your communities, each of your consortia, we've prepared a folder with a list of all the sites that are eligible today to participate in the CTN. We also have, yes. We also have, the list will also show you which sites in your communities have already activated service with us. And our call to action for all of you today is, this is California's statewide partnership to transform the delivery of healthcare using telehealth. Help us by reaching out to any of the eligible sites in your communities, and I'm going to go through this in a second to give you, you can sit down now, Denise. Help us by reaching out to any of the sites in your communities, because the bigger the state of California gets, the more leverage we have in terms of obtaining more resources. Okay? The other person who's in the back of the room, on her second day on the job here with the California Telehealth Network, is Danielle Smith. Danielle is our communications coordinator, and will be handling all our external communications as well as media relations. So please get to know Danielle today also. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so my name's Eric Brown, and just by way of review, for those of you who don't know, California Telehealth Network is a statewide broadband network dedicated to healthcare. All right, so a little different than some of the other BTOP or stimulus fund ARA grant projects around the state. We're focused on healthcare. And we received the largest single state award from the FCC's Rural Healthcare Pilot Program. It's $22.1 million. That money goes to pay for 85% of the cost to deploy a broadband circuit, router, network management, installation for eligible sites. Here in California, the remaining 15% is paid by the California Emerging Technology Fund. So we're one of the few states in the country where 100% of the deployment costs are covered by the FCC and by the Emerging Technology Fund. In most states, the sites themselves have to come up with the 15% match. In addition, the California Teleconnect Fund through the PUC provides us a 7.5% credit on reoccurring revenues. So we're actually oversubscribed, and that's good because we have a lot of work to do to deploy this infrastructure throughout the state. Over $10 million in additional funding from multiple sources. You can see some of the sources there, and I'll get into more detail about that in a little bit later. We have 4 goals. The goals are to create a statewide broadband network dedicated to healthcare. I mentioned that. We talk about explicit QoS, quality of service, and privacy and security. So one of the things I want to point out to you, for those of you who are not technophobes or technical, when we say this is a medical grade network, what we mean specifically is all traffic that travels between CTN sites across the network does not get exposed to the public internet. So think about exchange of patient records. Think about x-rays, MRIs, imaging, that kind of thing. We felt that, that the emphasis should be on security, privacy, and having a secure network. Secondly, most of our sites are primarily interested in doing video consultations over the network, telemedicine. All right, so there's a patient in Canby who needs to be examined by a specialist in San Francisco. Most of our sites are using the network to conduct those kinds of consultations. In order to do that, you need to make sure that the video feed and audio are uncompromised, even when the circuit is being used for other purposes. The Guaranteed QoS allows us to do that. It allows us to prioritize what types of traffic go across the network first. And we always prioritize video so that we don't have tiling or the picture popping out or audio sync problems between the video and audio. Okay? The second goal is a link to a national backbone. So I mentioned that traffic on the network doesn't get exposed to the public internet. We do have a secure gateway through Scenic. You're going to hear from Jim Delganis, the president and CEO of Scenic, in a second. Among other things, Scenic is the regional optical network for national medical and educational research backbones like Internet 2 and National Lambda Rail. So that what that means is we have, CTN sites have access to healthcare, educational and research institutions all across the country. Okay, so the National Institute of Health, Center for Disease Control, et cetera, et cetera. 3, our goal is to leverage and build upon recent investments in telehealth. So the state of California, folks, has had a long history of leadership in terms of pioneering the use of telehealth and telemedicine in this country. At CTN, what we try to do is we try to make use of those resources rather than reinvent the wheel. As a good example, we just merged with the California Telemedicine and E-Health Center, CTEC. It is the Telemedicine Resource Center for the state of California, federally funded through HRSA. And for sites that have never done telemedicine, you don't know a Polycom machine from a Cisco Tamberg machine, you don't know what color the light should be in the room, CTEC comes out and helps train the staff to figure out how to do all those things. Okay? So because we've learned it's not enough just to bring you the broadband circuit if it doesn't have any utility, if you don't know what to do with it, don't know what equipment you should buy, don't know where to find grant funding for some of that equipment, it's not going to be of much use for you. So that's an example of how we're leveraging other resources around the state. And then 4th, utilize the network for ongoing disaster preparedness training and response. What we know is that in times of natural disaster or bioterrorism attack, et cetera, those things have a disproportionate impact on the population centers. So if you think about the utility of a medical grade network deployed across the state, we know that a lot of our suburban and rural healthcare sites are going to be called on in those situations to take up the slack until communications can be brought up in the population centers. And so that's one of our areas of focus. The pie chart kind of shows you the makeup of over 860 sites have already been deemed eligible for the program. Again, Denise and Danielle have lists for your specific regions. About the largest part of the pie, as you can see, are federally qualified health centers. Give you some examples in some of your communities. This would be Clínicas del Pueblo de Salud down in Imperial County. They are CTN members. Tarzana Treatment Centers in LA. They are CTN members. Clínicas del Camino Real out in Oxnard, in western Ventura County. The community health clinics in the Central Coast. Open Door, Redwood MedNet. The list goes on. The next largest group of our sites are the community clinics and the municipal healthcare facilities around the state. When we think about pioneering or deploying our services, this is really who our target audience is. They're generally small. 60% of them are in rural California. There are about 40% in what we would call urban or population center areas. And they're split between Northern and Southern California pretty equally. At a high level, you say, what is CTN, Eric? If I sign up or a site signs up, what do they get? For the membership fee, we come out, we actually lease the circuit from AT&T. If the site is located outside of the AT&T footprint, AT&T makes the arrangements with the last mile provider. Could be Frontier, could be Verizon, could be your local cable operator to do the install. They provide the router, they do the installation, and then once the circuit's installed, we test and turn it up, and they perform 24/7 network monitoring. So if something goes bump in the night, your circuit goes down, alarm bells go off, we know about it hopefully before you do and can take corrective action. I talked about eligibility, which is what Denise helps with back there. Again, all Indian health sites are generally eligible. Federally qualified health centers I mentioned earlier. Critical access hospitals for those of you in rural areas. Any nonprofit community clinic or generally municipal or county hospitals and clinics are eligible to participate. I talked about it being a closed network and a secure gateway. As we look towards the future, the CTN is moving from being a network of routers and circuits to being a network of resources. And so what the vision is that we're creating an environment where if a rural site is in need of specialty care services not available in your area or other healthcare services, you would be able to find those services over this secure broadband network. Okay? That's the power of using broadband to bridge the digital divide, if you will, with regards to healthcare. It's also an optimal environment, obviously, for exchange of patient records, health information exchange. And so many of our sites ask us to assist them with hosting because they don't have resources, data centers, that kind of thing, or even just directing them the right place where they can get their needs met without getting ripped off. So those are some of the services that we're moving towards. CTN membership, I mentioned that 100% of the deployment costs are already paid for between the FCC and the Emerging Technology Fund. But we've learned that we need to charge something, because if you give people the service for free, they treat it like it's for free. And so what we've tried to do is create a membership fee structure that makes it affordable for just about any site to get in. We charge membership fees based on the size of the circuit you order from us. And so every site is guaranteed at least 1.5 meg circuit, or a T1 they call it. And so they can get in for as little as $62.50 a month. And again, no installation fee. It's a guaranteed quality of service circuit. All of our circuits, by the way, are symmetrical. For those of you are not symmetrical. What's the term? Symmetrical. Yeah. So if it's 1.5 down, it's 1.5 up. Synchronous. Thank you. Thank you. I said symmetrical. We file all the paperwork. Some of these subsidy programs that are federally funded require the site to go through a lot of arduous filings, and in many cases those can be done on an annual basis. Denise does that for all of our sites, and which is a big benefit. And the membership agreements usually span 3 years, which is kind of the standard for a commercial broadband agreement. I mentioned that AT&T is our statewide vendor. Here's just a copy of our membership fee rates. You can, when I started with the CTN, we had one speed. It was 1.5. As we have expanded, we've certainly learned that depending on what the sites are planning to use the circuit for, we need to offer multiple speeds. So we now have, I think, 7. Most of our sites still take the 1.5 because they're in rural or frontier areas. These are all, by the way, subject to availability. So we have to go out and find out if the capacity exists to provide you what you're asked for. But we encourage sites to take as much bandwidth as they can afford. Because one thing we know about bandwidth is people use more over time, not less. And there's an old saying, I used to be a cable operator, by the way, that you never got fired for putting too much fiber in the ground. The reverse is not true. Okay. The installation process, folks, for deploying broadband, particularly in rural areas, is a tough one. There are a lot of moving parts. You don't want to go through this any more than you have to. So what we try to do is consult with you, and we have resources at CTN to assist based on our best practice learning from other sites in terms of what bandwidth selection is best for you. But you can see they can get started for a little as $62.50. A lot of our sites take the 10 meg circuit, which is about $200 a month. And then the larger hospitals and municipal networks look at higher speeds. There is also an opportunity for sites that are not eligible for the subsidies. This would be, for instance, for-profit entities or entities that are in urban areas, but they are not providing health care at the site, at the location that they want to receive the circuit. The FCC rules do prohibit us from applying the subsidies in those areas, but we can provide service basically at cost. And our costs are basically what's called CalNet 2, which is the broadband rate card that the state of California's agencies pay. All right? So I just want to be clear about that. If Denise can help sites figure out if they're eligible. If you're not eligible, it's not over. We do have an option for you, but the membership fees are higher. And this kind of shows you what those look like. Now, if you're in an urban area, I'm just going to be honest and say these are higher than probably what you can get locally. But remember, what you're getting locally is not a private network. The speeds are generally not symmetrical. It's not guaranteed quality of service, so it's kind of an apples and oranges thing. In rural and frontier counties, these rates are very competitive. Okay, and what we're seeing is there are a lot of medical providers, particularly behavioral health specialists around the state, who are off the beaten path, who want access to our 800 plus sites as we deploy, who are very happy to pay these rates as part of their business plan. Okay, so, but the message is there is an option for folks who are not eligible to participate in the subsidy. So, to summarize the opportunity, it's affordable, reliable medical grade broadband dedicated to health care. And the vision is to bring the access to the best healthcare assets the state has to offer, whether those are specialists, whether those are applications. That's what our aim is. So it's a secure environment for exchange of patient records. Again, we're encouraging you to help us identify and sign up as many healthcare sites in your area as possible, because the bigger we get, the better we are, the more leverage we have in the marketplace. I will go back and say that I was in Washington, D.C. About 3 weeks ago, meeting with the FCC, reviewing our progress, thank you, on the program. They're very pleased with our progress in California. They think we've taken a very innovative approach. Excuse me. Should have had the mimosa this morning. We are already the largest rural healthcare pilot program in the country based on the number of enrolled sites. So yes, you can clap. That's and there are some of you in the room who've helped us get there. That, by the way, positions us well, because as we move forward in 2012 and beyond, we have a front seat at the table in terms of input on policy about how the programs will be done going forward, how we're going to evaluate usage and utilization, those kinds of things. Now, the other thing I wanted to share with you before wrapping up is the University of California, Davis actually incubated the CTN between 2007 and July of this year. When I started, I actually started as a UC Davis employee. We're transitioning to a 501c3 organization. We're hoping to have that done in January, where all the employees become employees of the 501c3. And the vision was always that CTN would be managed and governed by a public-private stakeholder group independently of the university. But we did collaborate with the university to get a stimulus grant, our grant, last fall. It's about $9 million from NTIA. About $2 million of that goes to provide for core operating expenses for CTN staffing, so I can feed my family at night and buy my hair care products and that kind of stuff. Okay? It also, though, importantly, provides for the establishment of 15 what we call broadband-enabled model communities. They were selected last spring. Some of you are in them, which is great. But these model communities will receive anywhere between $200,000 and $400,000 of equipment money to do e-health. E-health could be video conferencing equipment for the sites, could be routers, could be servers, could be wireless home monitoring or patient monitoring systems, those kinds of things. The equipment is currently being deployed and should be received and kicked off shortly after the first of the year. The grant also provides for over 60 hours of e-health online content. What we mean by this is, I alluded earlier to the fact that CTF comes out and helps train sites that have never done telemedicine before on what it is and how you do goal setting and equipment and that kind of thing. Well, this online content also provides some of the same benefits. And so my point here is that if you go to the CTN website, which is listed at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to get there. And for any of the sites that have an interest in that. The last thing on the slide is that these model communities will be important test beds for us to trial some new e-health applications. And I mentioned we're already the largest rural healthcare pilot program in the country. Believe me, folks, we have a parade of some of the world's most interesting vendors coming to us saying, how do I get access to your 800 sites? This is exciting. Where else can I go and have an opportunity to either trial or demonstrate my technology like I can here in California? So we're going to use some of the model communities on a mutually agreed basis to test some of these technologies. Here's just a list of the course curriculums. I would point out that the California Emerging Technology Fund contributed to a couple of these modules, certainly the California Telehealth Network Orientation and the Broadband Adoption modules, which is third from the bottom. Broadband adoption really is for those folks who aren't that familiar with broadband. What's the terminology? What's bandwidth mean? Why should I care about security and privacy? And what can I do to protect myself against those? Those are some of the things in those modules. And then you see the website address at the bottom. All right, so there's my contact information. It'll be, we're at www.caltelehealth.org is the CTN website. And you'll notice that that's my personal cell phone number, so so for any of you that have questions, don't call the office, call me. And I'm never in the office, so that's why I give the cell phone number. So the last thing I want to do is I want to play you a short video because, oh, it's in the PowerPoint file? Okay. One of the things that we've learned, we'll see if the sound cooperates with us here. I need to turn that up, huh? Is that the general public doesn't fully understand what telemedicine is. And so we understand that here in California, if we're going to leverage this tool, this technology, we need to do a better job of informing, making people aware of what it is and how it can benefit you in your life. The first step, though, is making the sites, the healthcare sites around the country, particularly in that country, in the state, understand what telemedicine is, and then also how CTN fits within that. So we started, this is a rough cut of a testimonial video that we put together. We're actually now doing 30-second PSA spots in the communities where our sites are located. Remember, I told you I was a former cable operator. So I'm leveraging some of those relationships to go back to the cable systems, Catalina Cable, for instance, in the case of Catalina. And they're going to run these PSAs because they think it's important that the community knows that they now have access to medical resources that they didn't have before. So let's see if I can get this to play and if you can hear it. No, we don't. It doesn't look like we have audio. Oh, well. Okay. Any questions for me? Yes?
If you've identified a rural health facility development,
Yes.
is there a way to segment a portion of that traffic off to like a computing center, or is this strictly for medical purposes? Okay, so
Can you grab a mic, Eric, please? And repeat the question?
Just talk up, Eric.
Eric, just project.
How's that? Better. All right, so the question was, if we identify an eligible site in a particular area, is there a way to allocate some of the bandwidth for other purposes? Denise is smiling back there. This is a huge issue with the Rural Healthcare Pilot Program. The answer is, what you do on your side of the router is up to you. That's not the right answer?
Don't ask, don't tell.
Right, that's exactly right. The spirit of the grant is for healthcare. Now, I suspect that as time goes on, and Jim and I talk about this, and he's next, there's a lot of overlaps between communities that need broadband help for healthcare and those that need it for education. And so we've already had some discussions with some of the, like Digital 395 and some of the Central Valley folks about, as those networks are being built out, is there a way to leverage some of that build out to, for multiple purposes? But from the FCC standpoint, when we get audited, they want to know how many healthcare sites have access to the network, and that's what we care about. We don't peek behind the other side of the router unless something goofy's going on over there. Yes. We are not today. However, I mentioned Catalina. Catalina was the first site to actually get installed as CTN, so I have a real soft spot in my heart for them. Most people don't know that the island of Catalina, which sits 26 miles off the coast of Long Beach, there is no wire running over there. Okay, so that's a huge issue because as much as we love wireless and there's this focus on wireless for a lot of good reasons, those of us who are telecom vets would tell you wireless over long hauls is, and particularly when you're dealing with video, right? Think about what the primary uses of our network will be. It's a problem. So to answer your question, we are not today, but that is something that we need to do for a couple of reasons. One, because in Catalina we've got an issue, but secondly, there's a teledentistry clinic called Long Beach Family Dental, also a CTN member site, over in the city of Long Beach,